Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. On today's episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast, we have an inspiring story of resiliency, transformation, and financial empowerment. Some of the best stories we have here on the show, but that's going to leave you motivated to make the changes to your financial future. Our guest is not only a seasoned financial coach with over 2 decades of experience, but also a CPA, an acclaimed author whose powerful journey will capture you from the very start, from arriving from the U.S. alone at 16 as an undocumented immigrant from Jamaica to building a successful financial empire. She has inspired thousands across the globe with her unwavering determination and her amazing smile, I must say. She has a great smile.
Thank you.
She's been featured in major publications like Black Enterprise, Business Insider, recognized for her game-changing insight into wealth building and financial literacy, whether it's through her impactful coaching, transformational speeches, or global travels. She's been, visited about 60 odd countries, just to name a few, Her mission remains clear: to empower others, particularly women, to break down financial barriers and achieve financial freedom. So let's get ready to get inspired by her incredible journey and practical wisdom, because today's guest is none other than the founder and CEO of Grow Your Wealth, Tanya Taylor. So, Tanya, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to chat with you. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Phil. Thank you for that introduction. I'm very happy to be here to chat and just talk about my journey.
I am. When I got your request to be on, I was like, I need this. I love an underdog story, because that's what inspires the most. Because if we see one underdog, then every single underdog knows they can make it. And the fact that you came here at 16, undocumented, kind of like snuck in the back door, we're not telling anybody. But you're everything's back to normal, right? You're
I'm good.
long serving here.
Long time ago.
I want to know, when you first came over, when you were 16, did you think you were going to be an entrepreneur, or were you just completely like, I just want to get to once I'm in America, I'm good?
Yeah. So it was. So when you're in Jamaica, I came from Jamaica, and when you're in Jamaica, you hear about America. You sort of hear about like everyone living in like this life of luxury. So when I came here at 16, I was alone. I was like, okay, so I could come and I could just live well. I'm not sure I thought about what that would look like, right? I just figured I'd just live well. But then it was interesting, because when I came, like everyone around me was like paycheck to paycheck. And it was sort of like, whoa, this is the reality. And most people were, not to take away from what they were doing, right? They were working hard, but they didn't have a career. It was just like a job or 2 jobs, or we Jamaicans are known for having 5 jobs. So it was that kind of situation that I came into, and I wanted something different, but it wasn't necessarily entrepreneurship. I wanted a career, because I felt like if I had a career, I could make more money, which is how I ended up becoming a CPA. It was, you sort of hear, well, what can you do to advance your career? And eventually I landed on becoming an accountant. And they said, if you become a CPA, you'll make a lot more. So I figured as a CPA, I would make a lot more. So I would go that route. And it worked out really well for me. But as I was going through that journey, the idea of what I had in Jamaica about being in America and what wealth looks like, I knew that my paycheck, no matter how much I was making, was not going to be it. So I think early on, I started to realize that there were other things that I needed to do. And at 25, I purchased my first home, because I just kind of come into someone who mentored me, and I talked about buying a condo, because at the time I was sharing a room with 3 boys in the family that I stayed with home, and I wanted to move. And I had the foresight to say I want to buy something instead of rent, but I was going to buy a co-op actually. And this person who was mentoring me said, why don't you buy a house, rent out parts of the house, and you could literally live for free. And so that was kind of where the wealth building started. And then when I got married, I met my husband in school. We're both accounting geeks. And so we figured, okay, how can we make extra money? And we started a tax practice. So that was another way. Actually, before I met him, I had started a small business with someone else. So I had that entrepreneurial mindset, but I also had the career because I have this high need for security. I don't want to get poor again. So I need to have that career. So my career was always my focal point. And then these other things were like other sources of income. But I did set a goal that by 45, I wanted to leave corporate and start my own business. And so that was a long ways off, in my early 20s thinking about that, but it was always something that I ultimately wanted to do.
I
Long
also
thing.
no, I love it because it gives me the chance to jump out of different parts because you had the what I like to call the typical 9 to 5ers career, right? You were like, we got sold the goal that hey, you go work for a corporation, you work for 25 years till you're 65, they'll give you a nice little golden watch, you get to retire, you'll be happy. And then we get into real life and we find out ain't true. You need to be working, like you said, 5 jobs to even afford the gold watch, not even the retirement afterwards, the gold watch afterwards. But I love how that stayed in you had a goal. Like if I truly want to have that American dream, the freedom that we got sold, if you will, because even in Canada, we get sold the Canadian dream, which is staying warmer in the winter, upgrading our igloos. But we got that freedom that we see from the States, right? Because the States is the monolith. And doing the corporate world wasn't doing it. So I love how you noticed that so young and you're like, yeah, that's not going to work, but I have the goal to get out.
Yeah.
When you started doing the journey down through that creating your wealth, buying back your time, as my mentor likes to say, because that's what money does, buys you back your time. With the house being your first real foray into personal wealth, then you had that business, and now you have that tax business with your husband, and now you're doing amazing things, traveling, talking, doing all these great things. Was there a moment where you're like, oh wait, I've completely switched, like I am already living this freedom that I was dreaming of when I was 16?
So yes and no, because I never went all in with the business. My husband ended up going all in, but I did not. And I look back now and I realized like I am very goal setting, check the box off kind of person. And I have never really been a big risk taker. If you talk to different people, they'll say different things. But in certain aspects, like I was not that person because we had planned to have a family. We do have children now, and so I wanted to have that security. So for me, that security was I need to reach $1 million by the time I'm 45 in my retirement. I need to save for my children college. By the time they get to college, they should have their money set aside. And I did do that by the time before 48, I was able to do that. So, but I never took that risk until after that. And actually, it was an accident that forced me out anyway, because when I decided to go full throttle into my business, I had just started the process. And when that happened, the dream job that I always wanted to leave corporate America with came knocking. And this is how life just kind of throws you, right? Because here I was, I put together like a year's worth of funds, set it aside, started my business. And then all of a sudden I got a call. And in our profession, it's not unusual. People will call you, hey, come and work for my organization. It was literally a joke. I said to my husband, yeah, I'm going to interview. And I said it to the children, all as a joke, interviewed, and they loved me. And they're like, oh, come for second rounds of interviews. And all of a sudden, my business, which I was put so much into, I was like, well, maybe I could go here, do it for 2 years, and then come back and do the business. Well, right before I started the second round of interviews, I had a car accident. And I just had to stop everything. I call it my redirection. So I had to stop everything. I still continue to do some of my business, which is financial coaching, but not in, I just couldn't do it in the way that I wanted to continue
Mhm.
doing it because of the accident. But I am certain that going back to corporate, it's not something that I would ever entertain again. And I feel like that accident was sort of like, it served many purposes, but one of them was like, no, this is the path that you should have been going on and continue to go on and not diverting to that path. So
I think that I have to agree with you. The car accident may have been a bit of an extreme
an
method,
extreme, yes,
but it was your
extreme is
dream
right.
job. So I think the universe was like, we need to go extreme here. She's not getting the
Yes,
little signs that we're sending her.
yes.
We'll go big. But yeah, I love that because I having interviewed so many other entrepreneurs, they do have that situation where if they're already a corporate worlder and they're doing that side hustle, they have their business on the side, either they know that it's taking care of their partner or it's about to take care of them, and then corporate life just puts that little cherry out there, like, yeah, dream job, that most excellent moment that you've been chasing as a corporate, but you're like, I have to get off this. It's like an
Yeah,
addict.
yeah.
And I love how there is something, a monumental, some people, like, for a large portion it was COVID. For a large portion of people, COVID really was the wake up call for them to understand that corporate life isn't for us, and it was for mine. And I'm glad that the car accident didn't take you out, and you're here so that we can have this conversation and inspire others. But and also that the thing that fell on your foot earlier before the interview didn't take you out, because that would have been a horrible situation. No interview, I would have felt horrible. It's like my fault. But I because you're a CPA and you're in the personal finance, I feel you kind of have like a kind of a heads up on people, because you understand numbers, and personal
Yes.
finance is pretty much just numbers moving from one column to another, which is exactly what CPAs do. They take numbers, put them on, make sure everything balances. How have you been able to take the well, I want to say complicated, because I know CPA is being an accountant is complicated, but it's just basic math. Like, you may have to solve for X or find Y, and it's not like physics for like launching a rocket. So it's relatively easy math. It's considered basic math. How has knowing, advanced basic math as a CPA helped you teach others personal finance? Because you're taking something that you went to school, you did huge tests. I know how hard the tests are. Just having done just high school math, I know that difficulty. I can only imagine afterwards, right? How have you taken the 20 years, 20 to 2 decades of knowledge from being a CPA and been able to kind of distill it down into simple lessons in your personal financing coaching?
Yeah, that's a great question because in my corporate career, I actually was in banking and insurance, and so a lot of and it's corporate, so it's a little different, right? So it's like more macro, but a lot of information that I gathered through the course of the years, I was able to take some of it, like being in the banking industry, even just some of the things that's happening in the insurance industry and having insurance knowledge. Sometimes people ask me if I sell insurance, and I'm always like, no, I don't sell insurance, but I understand like the benefits of insurance and interest rate, like explaining to people even simple things like this is how interest rate works. This is how you compound your money to make it grow, things like that, and just like even policies that's happening in the industry, like I'm able to take some of those components and help to inform what I do with my clients. And another big piece, even though when I was in corporate, like corporate taxes is very different from personal taxes. But even just my husband and I having a tax practice just by our background, being able to help people, not just because a lot of people think when you have a tax practice, it's just tax preparation, but creating tax strategies so that that helps you to build wealth faster so that you're keeping more money in your pocket as opposed to paying it to the government. And especially like for small business owners, like that's another thing where there are a lot of things that small business owners don't do correctly, because most of us who are in business, right? Like I'm in a unique situation where I happen to be a CPA, I happen to know how to set up a business, I happen to know how to do all of these things.
You know
But
the
most
little
of us,
tricks that big
yeah,
businesses do that small businesses should know but
should,
don't.
but they don't know. So there's a lot of this thing where you know your expertise and you're very good at your expertise, but all the other pieces that are supposed to, the engine that's supposed to keep your business running, most small business owners don't know. So just being able to go in and help them to, put all those pieces together to make sure that they don't get shut down by the government and that they're not paying a massive amount of taxes. I feel like the background that I've had as a CPA, and just even with my husband when we were doing our tax practice, was something that was just super, super helpful for individuals who sometimes come to me and they're, like they come for financial coaching, but then I'm like, as part of financial coaching, we need to do tax planning. We need to look at insurance. We need to think about this. So that's how I feel like my background and my professional background and just like my financial coaching background just kind of merges together to help people to get that holistic view of their situation.
You're giving them like the whole thing. You're giving them the
Yeah. Oh, yes.
mad science of of a CPA, and then with the holistic, kind of spiritual of understanding personal finance, because
Yeah.
it's a spiritual journey, because you're going on, you're like, wow, I didn't know that, and oh my god, like you have these
It's
epiphanies.
an awakening.
It
Yeah.
it is. It's a
Wait, do I
fully
need to fix
awakening.
that? Yeah.
And I love that you're doing the holistic thing, because you're taking both mind and spirit, because taxes are just plain numbers, which is our mind very good at just doing running computers, but the business is a soul. It's a living being, because it has to provide, just like the body. Um, where I like looking into the future, because you've already reached your goal. Obviously, you as a corporate life, you're like, I need this. If I'm going to do this full time, if I'm going to follow this dream, I need a mill in the bank, so that, or in my retirement, so I know that if everything goes to crapola, that is taken care of. I do not have to worry that I'm going to end up on Medicare or on social services, or social assistant and all that when I'm old, when I don't want to be, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, I got my kids taken care of. We're good there. I am now technically ready to jump into it. You jump into it, and it's a great success, traveling over 60 countries, all that. But I want to know, now that you hit this goal, you're like, you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, you're kicked down that door, you're walking through it. Where do you see yourself in a decade? I don't know. We're jumping a decade in. You're no longer a CPA. You still dabble occasionally, because it's always fun to play with numbers. And like you said, you're a math geek and a accounting geek. But where are you in terms of being an entrepreneur? Where are we? We're a decade down the road. You're halfway, in essence, being a decade. You're half an entrepreneur for the length of time that you were an accountant. What are you doing?
Yeah, great question. So my real passion is helping women, right? And for 2 decades, I've been doing personal finance as a hobby because I feel like there's this lack in general, not just women and men, but I honed in on women because there are so many women out there that are either head of household, women, we gotta be real, women live longer than men. That's just the truth.
It's
Um,
Matt, not denying that men seem to have a penance, if you will, to try stupid things. And we play stupid
so
games and we win stupid prizes.
yes, yes. So women are outliving men. There's a lot of divorce. So and women shy away from personal finance. They are afraid of numbers. And even though we could say, okay, it's 2024, women have been working, they still a lot of women who are married, they still rely on their husband to take care of the finances. And for me, I want to empower women to understand finances, to know that they can invest, to know that they can actually run their household, put together a retirement plan. If they need to manage on their own, manage their retirement plans. I really want women to feel confident in managing their finances. And so my goal is to help at least a million women over the course of my business to be able to build wealth, build sustainable wealth, and leave a legacy for their children. And so, as I had sat down and put together my plan for how I want to execute on that, and it's funny that you said 10 years because I have over the next 10 years, this is what I want to do. My goal is to really help those women to become confident and so that they have retirement plan and they are not worried if they get laid off from their job, because they could also think about, not just the income from their job, but also passive income. And I believe, like, with my story and the things that I've been able to do, just that alone is a way to inspire women to say, hey, you can do it. I came from Jamaica alone, 16. There was no one around me to help me. And I was able to gain this knowledge, so you don't have to go out and start from scratch. I'm going to take you and I'm going to meet you exactly where you are. And I'm going to show you how you can get to another level. And I've done that with so many women.
Already, I love it. I'm obviously going to be very, very happy to have you back. 10 years, you boasting that you did it in 5 years,
Yes.
and now you've tripled the number of people you've helped. That's a huge ambitious goal, and I love it because you already set it a huge ambitious goal. You hit that ambitious goal, and you're going to set another one, and you're obviously going to hit it because you're a go-getter. You're a CPA. For you, it's just numbers, moving things across the screen from one column to another column. For you, it's easy. But for a lot of us, it's hard because personal finance is hard. We didn't learn it in school. We get told that it's very complicated. The taxes are complicated, and of course, we're in corporate. We're paycheck to paycheck because it's tight. We have the inflation, recessions, and all these fun things that the the economy wants to
The
show us.
economy, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
our good friend, the economy. Um, when you're sitting down with someone who they feel like they're on burnout because they're not getting anywhere. They have that 30-30-10 rule or whatever that rule is, 30 to your living expenses, 30 to your, for everyday thing, for future, and then 10 for
See,
your
yeah.
living. And, that, and it's really hard because it looks like it's $20 going into the investment. And you talked about compounding, the power of compounding in beforehand. How do you kind of like bring them from that edge of like just despair because they're like $20 every month is doing nothing? It's like I stopped having my avocado toast, but that's only $5,000 a year. Like that's not putting me in
Right.
billionaire status. So how do you kind of like bring them back and go, hey, you're looking at a wall. Let's look at the sun. That is personal finance and how it can bring us out of here. Like, how do you get them? Like, take me through that kind of like that first couple steps with people.
Yeah. Well, I'll use one of my clients as an example because I feel like she's such a prime example. She came to me and she literally was so nervous, like she was nervous and she called me on the phone. And she was so nervous. She said, she just kept saying to me, do you think I could do this? And I kept saying, yes. I assured her she can do it. And the reason why she came to me is that her husband always took care of everything, and her husband had something happened to him and she thought he wasn't going to make it. And she said she was in such, fortunately he's okay, but she said she was in such, she had no idea where anything was, how anything worked, nothing, like zero knowledge. And when she came to me, she said, I don't even want my husband to know because I want to surprise him. And I took her in, the first thing I do with my clients is mindset, because already she was off the mindset that she can't do it. She's like, I don't know, I can't do it. I said, I teach my children some of this stuff. And she's like, and it wasn't to brag. She was just like, yeah, but your children are very smart. And I'm like, no, it's not, because it's not has anything to do with that. They can learn it. My children at the time were 14. So anyway, when she came in, we did the mindset work. And she told me later on, she said, oh gosh, when you told me mindset, I was just like, I don't want to do that because I just want to learn about the money. But she said that was a simple, most impactful thing for her, because in the mindset piece, we did work on setting goals. What ultimately is it that you want out of this? And how do you want to get there? And so we set her short-term and medium and long-term goals. When she came in, she had debt. She would only take vacation on her credit card. She had no emergency fund. She worked with me for about 7 months, and by the end of the 7th month, she had already built up her emergency fund. It wasn't where she wanted it to be, but she had already built up her emergency fund. She had a plan where most of her debt was paid up, and by the way, her income hadn't changed at that point in time. And And she wasn't sacrificing the things that she loves. I travel 61 countries. That's what I love. What do you love? So I asked my client, what do you love and that you're not willing to give up? Let's figure out how we put that in a budget, and all the other stuff that you're going out and doing that you're, why are you doing it? Then those are the things that we stop. And so she was able to do that. But one other thing that was really critical for her was, what in my corporate life, I've, for every company I've worked for, I've done recruiting, I've helped people with resume, I've done, like mentoring and all of that stuff. This was not a part of my course. She had told me, she said, there was a job my company offered me, and not my company had available, but I was not qualified for it. And the job posting came up, and this is something I would really like to do. And I said to her, let's get to your resume. So now, going even outside of what I normally do, helped her with her resume, prepped her for the interview. She got the job. She got a 40% salary increase. She took that money and now built up her emergency fund, going on vacation without having to use her credit card. I taught her to invest. So now she's investing some of that money. Since then, she's had 2 other job promotions, and now she's looking at how she can start generating additional income from other sources.
I love
So
that.
that's what I do with my clients. And everyone, I meet them where they are. I take them and I say, okay, how can we do this? Because I'm doing this because I could be corporate and I could be making a lot of money in corporate. So it's not that it's because I truly believe that I could change these women's lives. And when I look at her, and she'll call me periodically because she keeps telling me she's going to be my first millionaire client starting from scratch. And I believe that she will be, because now she took those things, and because of the way I help my clients go through that journey, it's not something that they walk away from and then they don't do it. It's habits that they apply to their lives forever. And that's the change that I want to make.
You're doing, like, again, incredible work. That's an insane story. I love those types of stories. Someone who goes from complete, like, no, I can't do it,
Can't
to
do it.
I'm going to be your testimonial. Like, you're going to have only one story to tell, and it's going to be
Yeah.
mine because it's going to be so impressive. That I love that, because it is a mindset shift, because you have to get out of that negative,
Yeah.
that I can't, and think of, it's possible. If someone from Jamaica who came over at 16 without letting Uncle Sam know that you were visiting, and now you're sitting here, you crushed your goals, you're helping others crush it, and I love that you're focusing on women, because I think it's time that women get a little piece of that amazing pie that us men have been enjoying for some time. There's a lot of pie. There's a lot of room at this table for
Yes.
people to join us. Um, we are coming to the end, and I completely forgot, like, one of my favorite questions to ask about how do you invest in yourself. So I want to know, from the time you were a CPA, being a badass student, and becoming one of those great people, to where you are today. I understand that mindset is important, because you need to get out of that you need to get into positivity. What do you do to invest? Like, how do you push yourself, maybe not push yourself, but constantly remain becoming the best version of yourself, so you can hit that goal of a million? I want to say 100 million people you want to help, but we'll go with, that's the stretch goal. The realistic goal is
I
a
like
million
that.
people.
I like
I
that.
I have a 100 million podcast launch goal. But I know you'll hit the million without a doubt. The 100 million is our big stretch goal. But how do you stay focused, and how do you keep investing in yourself so that you can hit those goals?
So I am a big believer in investing in myself and in people investing in themselves, and that's what I tell people all the time. And I'll give a quick example. I remember in my 20s, right, I wanted to get this job, and I had graduated junior college, and I was a babysitter because a long story, but I didn't have a green card yet. I needed to do something, and there was a course that someone was offering, and I forgot how much it was at the time. But I kept saying, I cannot. I was only making, I think, $200 a week. I was like, I can't spend any money out of that $200 to take that course. So that's how I ended up becoming a babysitter, because that's what I could find. Because the course that I would have taken to get me the job I didn't want to take it. Long story short, 6 months later, I'm still doing babysitting. Nothing has changed, right? And I remember calling up the woman again and I'm like, can I come to the course? And she's like, yes, this is the cost. And that was like literally all the money I had. I took it and I invested in the course. In about 8 weeks, I don't remember the time frame now, I got a job and I went from making, so I was making $200 to about $10,000 a year to $40,000 a year within that short time frame because of the course that I took. So after that time, and I mean, I paid my way through college, so that was another way to invest in myself. But after that, I realized the power of taking the funds and investing so that you could get to another level. And so there has been no question in my mind. Like even as I go through now my business, whenever I feel like I need coaching in an area, because obviously we're all not skilled in all the areas that we are. Even starting a business, I might know the nuts and bolts of starting the business, but when it comes to sales or when it comes to these things, I don't know. So I
You're the
have to
number person. You're in the
invest.
back.
Yeah. And I don't hesitate to go and invest in myself to get this knowledge, because if I'm going to try to go research or Google it or YouTube it, it's going to take me so long. And it's going to take me a really long time to get my business to the level that I want it. And that's one of the things that I tell people all the time. And I use my story all the time to say to them, imagine from $10,000 to $40,000, the difference that made. That's how I was able to buy my house at 25 to pay off college without getting into debt. Or I could have just been struggling in someone's basement as a babysitter. So which one makes the most sense? And for me, like it's a no-brainer. And so I continuously invest in myself
I love
in that
that.
way.
That is the best way of like just pointing out. You go, oh no, I can't spend any money. 6 months later, you're still in the same situation. Nothing's improved. You're in that room with three other people, and you're like, no, this is not what I want. This is not the America. And then finally saying, you know what, biting the bullet, taking the course, and then going 8 weeks or short time, pretty much short time in the long run. You're you're 400%. I don't know the math. I'm not
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's 400%. I'm going with the math. I'm trying to
We're
math
both.
impress. This an accountant. Way to go, Phil. But yes, you're like 400% increase your salary. You're killing it. And it just shows the power of just taking that small risk of investing in yourself and learning a new skill so that you can increase yourself. Um, I wish we had more time, but we don't. Which means you're gonna have to come back. As simple as that, Tanya. But Tanya, I have your 10-year-old self here. She's just come in from enjoying the beach in Jamaica, which I'm very jealous because I'm in Canada and it's cold right now. I'd rather be down in Jamaica where it's nice and warm. But she's very smiling. She's having a great time. She's telling me about the beach. But I want to know, what is a piece of advice, one single piece of advice you would love to be able to pass to your 10-year-old self, with everything you've learned so far? What's one piece that you would love to be able to have to your 10-year-old self?
Be willing to take a chance on yourself and believe that it's going to work out, because it will.
I love
It's
it.
as simple as that.
Well, I think she kind of knew that because at 16 she decided to jump over. She took a big risk, and then but yeah, I think remembering that taking risks and betting on yourself is probably the best piece of advice you can hand back to your 10-year-old self, to now or even 10. Remembering that you are the best bet and best investment. So, with that said, Tanya, I'm going to jump off stage. I'm going to start trying to implement that, putting bet on myself. But I want you to let my audience know, specifically the ladies out there that are listening, that have had kind of a fear, like that client of yours who's going to become your first millionaire. I'm pretty sure she's going to be your first multi-millionaire client. I want you to let my audience know where they can connect with you, how they can follow you, how they can start their journey with you, so that their personal financial journey is one of excellence. So the floor is yours.
Oh, sure. Thank you. So you can always reach me on my website at growyourwealth10x.com. And I'm on Instagram at that same growyourwealth10x.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Tanya Taylor, CPA, MBA. And I do have two books out, Broke to Wealth, which really takes you through the nuts and bolts of how to start your journey on personal finance. if you are someone who's just like, I'm not ready or I'm trying to understand, then that's a great way. And I talked about having a car accident and just navigating that process. I also wrote a book called Limitations to Limitless, which takes you through that process. And they are both on Amazon, and you could go on, you could read the reviews. I think they've been really helpful to people, and they will be helpful to you as well. And reach out to me, send me an email. If you go on my website, you can always email me at Tanya@GrowYourWealth10x.com. I would love to meet you. I'd love to chat to you, understand your situation, and you see, we would be a good fit to work together.
I love it. Tanya, thank you so much. I had such a pleasure chatting with you. You're a wealth of knowledge and inspiration for the audience, and your return will be even better, I think, because I'm pretty sure by the time you come back, your client's going to be a millionaire. That's just my
Yes.
suggestion. That's
Yes.
what I'm putting out there. But I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Phil. This has been great.
To my audience, make sure you check out those show notes to connect with Tanya. Make sure you're following her, all those fun places. I'll make it simple. Just scroll down a little bit. Either if you're watching or listening, you can find all the links there. I want to thank you for listening, Tanya. Again, a big thank you for being an amazing guest. And as always, audience, remember to invest in yourself. Tanya